All right, man, peace. So, brothers, I say this all the time. You guys are going to find that the things that I tell you are rock solid. I stated on this channel a very long time ago that LeBron James's name was found on the biogenesis ledger, as well as many other notable athletes' names were found on that biogenesis ledger. I made a video where Max Kellerman basically implied that he seemed to understand and have knowledge of the fact that LeBron James is on PEDs, allegedly. He snickered throughout the video, and that just goes to show you that many of these talking heads on TV, they're really just playing an act. They know that, as Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage, and we're all just players on that stage. LeBron James has a role to play. And that brings me to Mr. Stephen A. Smith, whose antipathy for LeBron James seems to grow more and more. He seems to get more exasperated by LeBron's antics as the days go by for whatever reason. I've stated that it's because LeBron will not sit down and give him an interview. That's normally why Stephen A. gets mad at one of these athletes. But anyway, when we watch this segment, we're going to see Stephen A. Smith at the very end of this segment once again give away his knowledge that LeBron James is scientifically enhanced, allegedly. Anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
All right, guys, let's get into it. So the blockbuster trade, the Cavs were looking desperado prior to it, but with their new players in the lineup, they're 4-2 with wins over the Celtics and the Thunder. And LeBron, he messed around and had a triple-double for the entire month of February. Stephen A. Smith, has this season been a good or bad one for LeBron?
Well, before Stephen A. answers, let me say this. It's been a great season for LeBron individually, but it's been a terrible for him in regards to the expectations that he comes into every year for his team. At 33 years old, if he does not win a championship, the season was a failure and it was a waste of time. The only solace that he has is that at his age, basically every year he's going to be hitting a milestone. So this year he hit the 30,000 point milestone. He also hit the 8,000 assists and 8,000 rebound milestone. Is LeBron one of the great players of all time? Absolutely. I have him in my top 10. Do I think that he's as good as Jordan, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, or Larry Bird? No, I do not. Do I think that he'll ever crack that top 5? Possibly. If he can win another championship, I'll put him above Bird if he can win another championship. But as of right now, no, I do not have him up there. And I don't care about the fact that he's had more longevity. I'm already on record as stating that I believe that the reason why he's had more longevity is because of the PEDs, allegedly. It is what it is. I know that a lot of his fanboys are going to get upset. That's what fanboys do. They get their panties all bunched up. It's okay. You'll get over it.
Well, for me, it hasn't been great because I'm not looking at the numbers. When he's averaging 26, 9, and 8, I expect that, and we all understand the greatness of LeBron James. We get all of that. This is not about that. When you talk about LeBron James, he's graduated from the point where you're looking at numbers, particularly from November to mid-April.
I agree. LeBron is past the point where he can elevate his status based off of numerical milestones. And many of his fans, that's what they're going to try to use to corroborate a sentiment that he's as good as Jordan or better than Jordan or he should be above Bill Russell or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's about what you do to improve your team to a championship level. And playing in the LeBron system, they're either going to be good enough or not good enough. And a player like him, you have to scrutinize the championship seasons that they've had. And when you scrutinize the championship seasons that they've had, it's not even like he's got 3 championships and he won one of the championships in 5, another one in 6, and another one in 6. 2 of the championships that he won, they not only did they win by the skin of their teeth, you can make the case that they should have lost both. Like there's levels to 7-game series. There are certain 7-game series that teams win where you say to yourself, okay, they just won that. They just won the series. And there are other 7-game series that a team wins where you say, wow, like they really should not have won that. And somehow they won. That series that LeBron had against the San Antonio Spurs in 2013, they should have lost that series. The series they had against the Golden State Warriors in 2016, they should have lost that series. He happened to win both. In my view, he's closer to being 1-7 than he is to, being, say, 5-3 or something like that. So I certainly have to take points away from LeBron when we're having conversations about where someone should be placed on the all-time greatest list. That's why I have Bird above him. Larry Bird was able to get 3 championships, and that was in an era where he had to go against the Philadelphia 76ers in his own conference in the first part of the 80s, and in the second half of the 80s, he was going against the Detroit Pistons. So once again, that's why I have to put him above LeBron for now. If LeBron can get a 4th championship, that will put him above Larry Bird on my list.
This is a man that's judged by what occurs in April, May, and June. We understand that. So from a numbers perspective, of course he's great. We're not debating that. But in terms of the greatness of this season, we have to put things in perspective. We have to take into account the drama that has existed in Cleveland. We have to take into account why that drama existed to begin with.
Well, we already know why the drama existed, Stephen A. The brother's just not a good leader. He's just not. And a lot of it comes from the fact that he did not have a strong father in the home. And you can just see that. It just permeates off of him, that feminine energy that a lot of times he has a hard time controlling. The brother means well. He does great things off the court. But you can't replace that, that missing element that he just does not have. It's unfortunate, but it's just a fact of life that in order for someone to truly embody the spirit of leadership, he has to have been instructed in how to harness that masculine energy, that masculine form, because you have to have a balance there. It is what it is, man. I know people are going to get upset by that. They're going to disagree. It's okay. It's all right.
It was because LeBron James, the player, as great as he is, didn't do his job as a leader. He didn't do his job because Kyrie.
Thank you, Stephen A. I've been saying that for the longest time. I get the LeBron James super fans, they get upset with me. Oh, how could you say that? How could you say LeBron's not a leader? Blah, blah, blah. They don't understand the difference between being a great player and a great performer and a great leader. He doesn't understand how to be a great leader. In other words, he loses his composure in big moments. Now, he's learned how to control his composure much better in the last 3 or 4 years. I give him credit for that. He's been slightly more mature in his 30s than he was during his tenure with the Miami Heat, and before that, the Cleveland Cavaliers, where things would get tenuous and he would totally fall off the wire. Because when you're getting into those high pressure situations, it's almost like walking across a wire. You have to perform a balancing act. Very high level pressure that athletes at an elite level have to learn how to deal with. And he struggled with that. That is why Dwayne Wade's instruction and his tutelage was so important to LeBron James' legacy. Once again, that is why they tried to bring Dwayne Wade onto the Cleveland Cavaliers before this season. I told you guys he was going to act as a psychological support for LeBron. But that blew up in their faces, so they had to get rid of him, really at LeBron's behest. What that kind of ended up being like was a young man who moved out of the house and then tried to move back in because he thought he might need a little bit more parental support, and then he realized he really didn't want that anymore. I think that LeBron realized that him and D-Wade are better off as friends and not teammates at this point in both their careers.
Kyrie Irving is in Boston. And Kyrie Irving is in Boston primarily in large part because of LeBron James. Whether it's the way LeBron James played, whether it's the way LeBron James elected to lead, whether it was his willingness or lack thereof to want to be a part of it. Now, that doesn't mean they're enemies. It doesn't mean they hate each other or anything like that.
No, they don't hate each other. They're just better apart. Kyrie realized that their relationship had reached its utmost potential in regards to how much success they were going to achieve together. And he said to himself, I'm 25 years old. It's time for me to go fly my own flag. There's nothing wrong with that.
They're grown men. They're both class personified. They're very adult. So they're going to speak like they did during All-Star Weekend. They're going to get along. Everything's going to be copacetic. We understand that. But in the end, what it comes down to is Kyrie Irving, who is a superstar in this game and one of the elite guards that we have ever seen.
I will say that Kyrie's a borderline superstar. I can't put him quite as superstar yet. He's borderline. He's He's in that class with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Like I always state, there's only 4 superstars in the NBA in my view. And that's LeBron, KD, Steph, and Kawhi. Then you have that next level of stars, and that's Anthony Davis, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kyrie, a couple other guys.
Was in Cleveland and wanted to leave and did not want to play with LeBron James any longer. The fact that you lost that guy and nothing that you've acquired makes up for losing that guy is a step back. It's not a step forward, which is why I would say that I'm not going to attach the word good, because I'm not thinking about LeBron's individual heroics as a player. I'm thinking about LeBron, the leader. When you lose that quality of a player, and because he doesn't want to play with you, he wants his own shine, that is an indictment against you as a leader, and that's where the bad comes in.
But when did that take place?
Beginning of the season.
That's speculative. From what I understand, Kyrie was ready to leave LeBron after their first season together. Certainly after their first championship together. He was ready. He was already ready to leave LeBron, from what I understand. I think that LeBron is someone who wears very thin on the people around him. I think that he's an acquired taste. I think that you have to know him really, really well to be able to be around him for very long, because he's a control freak and he's an attention whore. And that can wear on you if you have alpha male traits. Now, if you're willing to be one of the people in his retinue, one of the members of his court per se, then he could tolerate you for a while, as long as you know your role. But when you start to conduct yourself as someone who's not going to be fully subservient, he takes that as an affront to his throne. And then he decides that he wants to nitpick you and play these little silly games. And grown men are going to tire of that very quickly.
Before the season.
Well, you can say it's before the season, but everything that's happened during this season is a residual impact from that move.
Is it LeBron's fault that Paul George is not on the Cavs? Or Eric Bledsoe's not on the Cavs?
Yes, it is, sir. Yes, it is. And we all know that the LeBron James conglomerate, the LeBron James superfans are going to try to debate that. They have bought into the fully fictionalized media narrative that LeBron had nothing to do with Kyrie being removed. The fact of the matter is that the original story, which is the true story, was that Dan Gilbert, or the GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers, came to LeBron and told him that they were ready to bring in Eric Bledsoe and Paul George. All LeBron had to do was sign an extension or sign a new deal. LeBron did not want to do that because he wanted to maintain his authority over his own future. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't have it both ways. You can't want to have control over your future and then not want to be held accountable when they decide to trade Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas, because they had to make that move. Why is that? Because Dan Gilbert sat back and he looked at the situation and he said, we were not able to compete with the Golden State Warriors last year with a fully healthy team. How are we going to compete with the Golden State Warriors with a very, very unhappy Kyrie Irving? So I better trade him now, because if I don't trade him, he's going to hold this bitterness over for the next 2 years. He's not going to perform up to snuff, up to par. We're not going to win. I'm going to lose LeBron and I'm going to lose Kyrie. So I better trade him for something right now. That's what was going on with the Cleveland front office. And LeBron, in his pride, blew all that up himself when he did not want to sign the extension. And once again, I understand. Sometimes you need to be proud. Sometimes you need to be prideful. Sometimes you need to do that. But you have to understand that when you decide to be proud, you must hold yourself accountable. You must hold yourself culpable for whatever ensues.
Cavs?
Some would argue yes, Max.
How's that?
Because things that were transpiring during negotiations and what have you as it pertained to Paul George and Eric Bledsoe. Again, when you don't have the relationship that you should have with Dan Gilbert as well, maybe those things contributed to it. Well, you could say that, but LeBron plays a role in that too. It takes two.
No, that's Dan Gilbert's fault. Dan Gilbert is a spoiled basketball know-nothing who thinks he knows something, and is just lucky that LeBron happened to be born in Akron, Ohio,
very disrespectful.
and happened.
I agree, Steve. It's extremely disrespectful. But, you get that when you're done with one of these fanboys. They'll just say anything to cover up for the truth. Dan Gilbert is slightly culpable, but Dan Gilbert has bent over backwards for LeBron since he came back. He's pretty much allowed LeBron to have the run of the franchise, the run of the organization. I don't think that it was too much to ask to have LeBron sign an extension or to request it. Dan Gilbert is a businessman. He's not going to continue to allow other people to walk all over him and dictate to him how he's going to run his business for that long. No. LeBron, of course, has to spin the narrative a whole other way, as if he had nothing to do with the Kyrie trade. He was ready to move Kyrie if he could have gotten Paul George and Eric Bledsoe. He just wanted to have everything go his way. He did not want to have to re-sign that contract or to sign a new contract. So it's whatever.
Happened to be drafted to the Cavs. That's the problem. He's a crybaby when LeBron left. He spoiled the relationship. LeBron hasn't forgotten, and the only reason and the only way he'll spend money on a roster going forward is if LeBron. So think about if you're a Cavs fan. Hold up, time out, damn Gilbert. You won't commit to Paul George or Eric Bledsoe because LeBron. You won't give us a good team going forward because LeBron won't commit to you. How do you figure that? How do you figure that? So
easy, because we already have a championship level team that has been to 3 straight finals that we already have. But we can't keep that team together because they don't want to play with LeBron. So if I'm going to have to move one of the top young players in the NBA because he can't play with LeBron, the least LeBron can do is understand what his role is in this situation and appease me, if I'm Dan Gilbert, by re-signing a deal or extending a deal if I'm going to bring him 2 more pieces that are going to actually improve the team. It's called quid pro quo, Max Kellerman.
that's okay. That's not okay. That's not LeBron. That's Dan Gilbert. Terrible owner, rotten organization as a result. LeBron's the only thing propping that up. Now to the point about Kyrie. I agree with you. It looks increasingly, and it looks bad because Kyrie, I don't think they're going to get past the Cavs in the playoffs this year, but Kyrie has by and large played the right way, tried to lead that group the right way, has shown.
Let's be honest, Max Kellerman. Kyrie has, he has overwhelmed everyone's expectations of what he would be in Boston. No one thought that he would be as great as he's been there. No one thought that he was going to lead the team with the level of adeptness that he has shown. He's proven himself to be an excellent leader, always in control, being able to maintain his composure in adverse situations. He's known for being a clutch performer. So the only question that anyone had was that would he be able to lead a group of men into quote unquote battle? And he's shown that he has that quality. So he surprised all of us. I'm not particularly surprised, but I am surprised a bit at the level that he's been able to lead. So kudos to him.
Showing he could be the best player on a winning team, not just look great finishing in the paint, not just be deployed as an offensive weapon the way LeBron was using him. Kyrie is showing something. So then you do look at LeBron and you say, well, why isn't he there? But all that stuff took place before the season. We're talking about, is this season good or bad for LeBron? And even then, Stephen A., I could understand if you would say, you know what? How's the team performing? Up to LeBron team's normal standards? Is he playing defense much? And all that would be legitimate. But here is why I think you're wrong. LeBron James is the oldest player ever with the most minutes and miles, the most minutes on his legs, by far, ever to play at this level. So you talked yesterday about an argument I had. You said you had to contextualize. You must contextualize LeBron James. And the reason we don't is because, as you said, 26, 9, and 8, or whatever the averages are, you said, I expect that from LeBron James. Think about that for a second. You expect a player. No players come close to this production with this many miles and minutes on his legs.
Yes, and you don't ask yourself any questions about that, Max Kellerman. I know for a fact you do, because you have alluded to it in the past. You alluded to it in the video that I did on you hinting that LeBron James is allegedly on PEDs. Once again, brothers, please pay attention to how many of these talking heads, they know damn well what the real issue is. They know damn well what the true story is, but it's more lucrative to perpetuate a narrative. It's very similar to what I've stated about the so-called Ali Summit, which was led by Jim Brown. The narrative has always been that the most affluent and the most prominent black athletes in America, they came together for a convention to assist Ali, to show that they had his back. when in reality they were all paid by Bob Arum to try to convince Muhammad Ali to not sign up, or pardon me, to not resist the draft process. That's the true story behind the quote-unquote Ali Summit. Bob Arum went on the show Undisputed and explained that very meticulously to Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. They heard it all, but they still continue on with that narrative. Why is that? Because what you see on TV is mostly a smokescreen. Once again, that's why I have this channel, because the so-called black man is the recipient of the most lies. They tell you these lies so that they can control your mind and control how you think. That's why sports is a very important tool for psychological manipulation. Similar to this guy here, Max Kellerman. He already knows that why LeBron James has shown so much longevity, why he's been so sprightly even at this advanced stage in his career. He knows why that is, but he's trying to act as if he doesn't know why, because that would allow him to continue on his soapbox, where he tries to act as if he's this huge proponent for LeBron James and act as if he's been this singular figure in NBA history in regards to how great he's been this late in his career. He already knows why he's been this great. The man is on PEDs, allegedly.
You just expect it from LeBron. That's why this is not perceived as a good season, because he set the standard so high, just made you think he can do the impossible forever, that he doesn't get credit when he does it. He's had an amazing season.
Well, listen, you can look at it that way. Well, I'm like this. We universally recognize him and religiously recognize him as the best in the world. What do you want? You want to give him a pedicure next? Or give him a foot massage? I mean, what the hell do you want to do? I mean, there's but so much you can say about the guy. We know about his greatness. We know that he's
Well, shit, Max Kellerman might want to get more than that.
a physical freak of nature. LeBron, as he ages, other people age and attrition kicks in and they lose a step, plus they get hurt.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? LeBron is the only human being to come into the NBA and actually get stronger and have less body fat as he gets older.
LeBron doesn't even get hurt. All right. I mean, you look at him and you just say this physical specimen that he is. Now, obviously, the lack of physicality that exists in today's game compared to years past is something that has to be taken into consideration as well. You've got to wonder how long other people would have lasted if they did not have to endure the physicality. Keep in mind that the NBA had to change the rules to some degree because of the bad boy Pistons implementing the Jordan rules, okay? And the New York Knicks under Pat Riley with Oakley and Mason and those boys ultimately trying to invoke their own brand of Jordan rules, even though it wasn't just against Jordan, it was against a bunch of people anyway, because they played and engaged in roughhouse tactics. So the rules of the game were modified and changed. And as a result, what LeBron has been subjected to physically is nothing compared to what other dudes may have been subjected to. And they were about 30 to 40 pounds lighter.
Look, let me say this, and I mentioned this before on this channel. People like Stephen A. Smith, who's in his late 40s, they like to create this mythological NBA where it was like rugby or tackle football. And that's just not the case. You had an era in the mid to late 80s where, depending on the game and depending on the team, you would have a higher level of physicality. Okay? But defense and the physical aspect of the NBA really peaked in the mid to late 90s into the early 2000s. That's when it peaked. That's when you had a lot of games that were in the mid 70s, in the low 80s, things like that. The mid 80s, late 80s, even into the early 90s was not a defensive era. It was not. Okay, you had teams leading the league in scoring at 110, 111 points a game. The mid 80s was not a defensive era. And what makes a lot of old heads look bad is that a lot of these younger dudes, they go back and they look at the old basketball games and they say, where's all this super physical basketball that everybody always talks about? They have the right to say that because a lot of it is a lot of fluff from a lot of old heads who want to feel like their era was the best. At the end of the day, basketball is basketball. Does the league watch for any type of extra roughhousing more than they did back in the day? Yes, of course they do. But the players today are faster and a bit stronger and more explosive. A lot of that's due to the PEDs, but it's still the case. So you have to put much more of an eye of scrutiny on the level of physicality that you allow because the players are moving so much more explosively than they did back in the 80s. Now, in the 90s, is when the players started to pump a lot of iron. I don't think players lift weights as heavy as they did back in the 90s. So the 90s overall was a culture of roughhousing that pretty much culminated in the Malice at the Palace. After that, the NBA realized that they had to do something. But the league today is still physical. It's not as soft as people like Stephen A. Smith will try to act like it is. And you also must understand now that it's tougher to play defense now than it's ever been in the NBA because you have players who have range out to 26, 27 feet, which you didn't have back in the 80s.
We can't ignore that.
Well, except that take those cases one at a time. Michael Jordan didn't retire because of physical stress. It was life stress and maybe mental fatigue. He wanted to try something else.
Well, if you let Skip Bayless tell it, Michael Jordan was suspended, according to him. And he says it very, very matter-of-factly.
That's what broke up the 3-and-3 the two three-peats. Larry Bird's back went out. His back went out. If it was going to go out, you want to give him an extra couple of years. He's still not near LeBron.
Well, look, let's understand something about Larry Bird. If Larry Bird had the performance-enhancing drugs that the players have today, he would have put up Dirk Nowitzki numbers. That debilitating back injury that he had cost him probably about 10,000 points. And when you look at his career, he still accomplished just as much as LeBron has accomplished. He's won one less regular season MVP. He's won the same amount of championships, and he won 3 MVPs in a row, which is something that LeBron never did.
Magic Johnson got sick from off the court stuff.
Let me say this. I see a lot of brothers, they come in the comments and they claim that Magic Johnson never had AIDS. I'm not going to get into a back and forth about that. But from what I understand, Magic Johnson was healed by Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi healed a lot of celebrities who had HIV and AIDS and other diseases that people don't know about. Okay? Dr. Sebi healed Magic. He also healed a few other major celebrities, but that's another video for another day.
So, those are the 3 guys who would compete with LeBron for that title, right, of the non-bigs, and none of that had to do really with the era they played in.
Well, not necessarily so, Max. I mean, when you take into account Jordan or some of the things that he was subjected to, yes, his father passed away, and that's what led to his first retirement. He comes back
allegedly
for another three-peat or what have you. But the game was still considerably physical, and obviously that takes some years away from you. Larry Bird wasn't sitting in the sunshine and developed a bad back from that. He developed a bad back from playing basketball.
No, that's not true. Actually, he developed a bad back from digging a ditch for his mother in the off season. That's how he hurt his back. Larry Bird and a lot of the other players from the 80s, they broke down early because they were not put through a comprehensive weight training program and conditioning program like many of the players today. Their idea of getting in shape was playing basketball for 4 hours. That's where they went wrong. And that's why their bodies broke down so quickly. Isaiah Thomas was done by 31 years old. Larry Bird was done by 31. A lot of those guys were done early. Jordan, to his credit, started weightlifting at 26. That's why he was able to carry over into his 30s.
And subjecting himself to what he subjected himself to. So we got to take that into account. Even somebody like
Larry Bird an extra 2 or 3 years, he's still not LeBron.
Hold on, Patrick Ewing with
Larry Bird was better than LeBron in his prime, dude. I know a lot of people don't like that. He's just better. He's not the stat stuffer. He's not quite the stat stuffer that LeBron is, because he's not the physical specimen that LeBron is. But Larry Bird, I believe, still has more triple doubles for his career than LeBron does. But you brothers could look that up. But I'm pretty sure that he's still above LeBron on the overall triple double list, and he played many fewer seasons and many fewer games.
With the bad knees, we can't ignore that. How about Alonzo Mourning? How about Alonzo Mourning with the kidney issue?
Alonzo's not in that class.
Yeah, I agree with Max. Don't bring up Alonzo Mourning, bro. He's not in the class. Just stop.
Patrick is not in this class.
Oh, my God. Will you listen, please? What I'm saying to you is that what you subject yourself to. In other words, you might take information, you might take medication and anti-inflammatories and things of that nature that folks will pump into their system. All of these kind of things.
Yeah, well, Alonzo was pumping some stuff into his system, but it wasn't necessarily for organ damage. And if he did have organ damage, it was because of what he was taking to try to be dominant on the NBA court. I'll leave it at that.
things that have been talked about throughout NBA circles as contributing to the health demise of players. I'm saying in this day and age, it's not as physical as it once was, and as a result of that, you benefit from it.
Generally. But you can't bring up Patrick or Alonzo because they had no chance to ever be in the class of player we're talking about. And I love Patrick Ewing. Stephen A., he was the guy for me growing up.
I can bring up
he hurt me as a rookie, but Patrick Ewing was never going to be on LeBron James or Michael Jordan level.
It's not about that.
It just is what it is.
The subject's about the health issue in terms of the way the league was compared to what it is now physically.
Right, but that's only relevant if you take examples from the past of guys who would otherwise have been LeBron James level for this long, but they couldn't be because of the league they played in. And I'm giving you examples. I don't think that applies to Magic. I don't think that applies to Bird. I don't think that applies to Jordan. LeBron James right now, in baseball there's a rising fastball. Now it doesn't actually rise. That's impossible because gravity over time will take an object toward the earth. It actually is declining. It's going toward the earth.
And
why
we
does
don't
it
know
seem...
that. Who do you think you're talking to? Kyrie Irving? Do everybody doesn't believe the earth is flat? I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, who doesn't know that?
So why does it seem like it's rising? Because the spin the pitcher puts on the ball makes it decrease at a rate slower than you would expect. So to the batter, he's anticipating the ball's going to be somewhere, but it's higher than he's anticipating. So to the batter, it feels like he's rising. That's LeBron James. Even if he is declining, he is declining at such a slow pace that people are actually sitting around going, is he getting better? Which is impossible, but he's making us imagine that. How could...
No, he's not making us imagine that, Max Kellerman. I don't even know why I let your ridiculous analogy go on for so long. Maybe just so that I could make sure that I could respond to it in proper context. You know why LeBron is not decreasing at the level that the average person would decrease at even at this age. You already know why, Max Kellerman. You're just putting on a front.
How could he be having a bad year?
It does raise an eyebrow that he gets better as everyone gets worse. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Things that make you go, Hey, brothers, did you hear that? Look at Max Kellerman's smirk. You know why Max Kellerman is smirking? Because he knows exactly what Stephen A. Smith is referring to. Okay, I'm going to rewind it back one more time.
Is he getting better? Which is impossible, but he's making us imagine that. How could he be having a bad year?
It does raise an eyebrow that he gets better as everyone gets worse. I'll leave it at that.
Okay then, cliffhanger. LeBron, just the fourth player ever to average a triple-double for a full month, joining the Big O, Westbrook, and Will. But LeBron...
That's not no damn cliffhanger, Molly Karen. I mean, you have to be an idiot to not know what Stephen A. Smith is talking about. And Max Kellerman knows exactly what he's talking about. That's why he's still smirking right there. He's like, damn it, Steve, why are you saying this on air? No, we have a show to do. LeBron is the gift that keeps on giving. But anyway, I just wanted to show you, brothers, that Stephen A. Smith, he knows what time it is. All right? Peace.